brothers and sisters. That's what he said. He said, look at it. This is your example and this is your warning. And he said, be careful that when you think you stand, lest you fall. And the example was the cloud that came to them the next morning. And what I'm trying to say to you in that is, from the moment that cloud appears, it is a precise road and a precise destination that every man and woman and child of that nation were to be responsible to. God didn't say, find a good road out. God didn't say, well, we're all going to the same place, so it's really no big deal how we get there. God said, you are responsible to follow that which I have revealed. In Romans 1:17 it said, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed, from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. So what we're looking at then, God said to Israel, in fact, marking your place, you can go if you want, or just wait for me there. In the last chapter of Exodus, the 40th chapter of Exodus, and the 38th verse, the last verse. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and the fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. In other words, what God is saying in Romans is the same thing He said in Exodus. He's saying, I've showed you something, now you are responsible to follow it. I've revealed something to you, and now you are responsible to follow what I've shown you. The only way you can get messed up, Israel, is if you ignore that cloud. The only way you can be lost, Israel, is to cease to follow that cloud. Now in Romans 1:21, it says, because when they knew God, when they had the cloud, when they saw the cloud, when we knew God, they glorified Him not as God. And how is it? I'll pose a question to you this morning. How do you fail to glorify Him as God? Does that mean, well, we didn't sing any worship songs this morning? Does failing to glorify Him as God mean that we didn't operate in the gifts this morning? How do I fail to glorify Him as God? By making something else God. That's simply by preferring myself above His leading. No matter how much I call Him God, no matter what my posture when I call Him that, no matter if I kneel and I fast and I pray, no matter what, if I give or if I don't give or attend or don't attend, if He's not God in my life in every area, He is not glorified as God at all. So He said, when they knew Me, they didn't glorify Me as God. Neither were they thankful, but they became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. The 23rd. And they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into the image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Now we read that and we think, okay, it's talking about they went out and fashioned an idol that looked like birds and animals, and which they did. But they would have never fashioned the idol had they not made man God before they made the idols. You don't go out and carve a golden calf until after you've made yourself God. Once this is accomplished, then we look at Romans 10 and 3. For they being ignorant of God's righteousness because they chose to ignore. They are now ignorant of God's righteousness, and now they go about to establish their own righteousness because they've not submitted themselves to the righteousness of God. Now, don't make that a mystery. What that's simply saying is if God can't lead you, you ignore God and He can't lead you. Every step of the way follows this pattern. And then it says in Ephesians, the 4th chapter, th verse, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through that ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. So do you see what took place? The first thing they do is they ignore the revelation. God says, hey, I'm showing you something. Once they've ignored the revelation, they become ignorant. Then they change God into another image because they have to establish their own righteousness because they've ignored the righteousness of God. Or we, whatever the case. Then we are alienated from the life of God. And this can happen. We are numbed to what's going on. From the very first, you ignore God, but from that point on, it becomes an ignorance. A chosen ignorance, but still an ignorance. I was praying and seeking the Lord, and I said, God, I don't understand how the church world, and I'm not leaving us out, how the church world can compare what we're seeing to what you are showing us, and we're not crying out, and we're not on our face, and we're not concerned. We go on week after week, oh yeah, I'm concerned, but nothing changes. And I said, I don't understand why the hearts are not crying out. Why will we not see? And the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me, and He said, it's not that they will not see, it's because they cannot see. You hear the words, but it does not come to the heart where we know the desperation of the situation that we're faced with. Because we have altered the faith and made faith acceptable to God. But salvation is an ongoing process, an ongoing progression. And we have taken being saved and misused it and abused it. And we've actually damaged people with it, even in our sincerity and our zeal. For what we have done is we've made hell, or we've made salvation an escape from hell. And we've sold it at discount prices to anybody that'll sign some silly piece of paper. And sent them down the road thinking everything's all right between them and God. We've made them as ignorant as we are. We have went out and got our converts and made them twofold children of hell. Because we've told them what you need to do is whisper some words. What you need to do is say a little prayer and it'll save you from hell. But I'm going to tell you, God is not trying to save you from hell. God is trying to save you from the one that will take you there. Romans 6:16 says that the one that you give yourself to, the one that you serve, will take you where He's going. And what God is trying to save you from is from the fallen nature, the nature that took place in the fall. He that is going to hell and will take you there if you do not escape Him. That's what God is trying to save us from. The old man is what it's talking about. It's him we must escape.